Welcome back to our chilling corner of the internet. Today we'll explore the bone-chilling phenomena of sleep paralysis encounters. Sleep paralysis, a temporary inability to move or speak while falling asleep or upon waking, often comes with terrifying hallucinations. It's a living nightmare, a horrifying bridge between sleep and wakefulness. We've gathered 5 true stories of such experiences that will make your blood run cold. So brace yourself as we delve into these terrifying true tales. Our first story takes us to a small town where Sarah had a horrifying encounter. Sarah was a woman of routine and her nights were no exception. But one night her peaceful slumber was interrupted by an eerie presence. In the dead of the night, Sarah found herself in the grip of sleep paralysis. Paralyzed and trapped in her own body, she was acutely aware of her surroundings but unable to react. It was during this terrifying state of limbo when she first saw it, a shadow figure looming ominously at the foot of her bed. This was no ordinary shadow. It was darker than the night itself, a void that seemed to consume all light around it. It stood there, silent and still, an embodiment of her deepest fears. The figure was faceless, yet Sarah could feel its gaze piercing through her, filling her with an icy dread. She wanted to scream, to run, but her body refused to obey. As the shadow figure loomed closer, Sarah felt an overwhelming sense of malevolence. It was as if the figure was feeding on her fear, growing stronger with each passing second. She could feel its icy touch, a coldness that seemed to seep into her very soul. It was an experience that transcended the physical, reaching into the depths of her psyche. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, the paralysis broke. Sarah sat up, gasping for breath. The room was empty, the figure was gone, but the chilling memory of that night remained, etched into her mind. Sarah's terrifying encounter with the shadow figure left her convinced that something sinister lurks in the dark. A skeptic turned believer, she couldn't shake off the feeling that the shadow figure was more than just a trick of her mind. It was a chilling reminder of the thin line between our world and the unknown, a line that can blur during the terrifying state of sleep paralysis. Scene script. Next up we have Mark, who was tormented by sinister whispers and laughter. Mark's tale is no less chilling than Sarah's. Imagine, if you will, being jolted awake in the dead of night, only to find yourself trapped within your own body. That's precisely what happened to Mark one fateful evening. His ordeal began when he was roused by an unsettling sound, a cacophony of whispers and laughter that seemed to be echoing from all corners of his room. The voices were not of this world, their tones sinister and mocking. It was as if he had unwillingly tuned into a frequency from another realm, a realm that reveled in his fear and confusion. Frozen and unable to call for help, Mark was trapped in his own private horror show. The shadowy figures he glimpsed in his peripheral vision only added to his terror. They lurked in the corners just out of sight, their whispers growing louder and more insistent, their laughter more derisive. What made Mark's ordeal all the more terrifying was the realization that he was utterly helpless. He couldn't move, couldn't run, couldn't even scream. He was a prisoner in his own body, forced to endure the taunting whispers and eerie laughter of unseen specters. As the minutes ticked by, each one feeling like an eternity, Mark's fear escalated. The laughter grew louder, the whispers more menacing until they were all he could hear. It was as if the voices were inside his head, their sinister words echoing in his mind. And then, just as suddenly as it had begun, it stopped. The whispers ceased, the laughter faded, and Mark was left in eerie silence. He could move again, but the fear remained, a chilling reminder of the night's events. Mark's chilling encounter serves as a reminder that the night is full of terrors. Let his story be a cautionary tale to us all. Sleep paralysis is not just a medical condition, it's a gateway to a world of shadows and whispers, where your deepest fears come to life. We now turn to Emily, who felt an intense suffocating pressure during her sleep paralysis. Our tale begins with Emily, a young woman just like any other, but her nights were far from ordinary. Her sleep was often disturbed by a paralyzing phenomenon that left her in the terrifying clutches of sleep paralysis. Emily's account of her ordeal is bone-chilling. She recalls an eerie calmness that preceded the storm. As she drifted off to sleep, she was suddenly aware of an ominous presence. Then, an invisible force pressed down on her chest, its weight beyond articulation. It was as if a colossal stone had been placed on her, leaving her gasping for air but unable to draw breath. The room around her seemed to close in, the darkness becoming denser, the silence more deafening. Emily tried to cry out, but her voice was trapped within her. As captive as she was, her heart pounded against her ribs, each beat echoing the ticking seconds of her nightmare. The terror was palpable, a living entity in the room, feeding off her fear. The pressure intensified, the air growing thinner, her lungs pleading for relief. But there was no respite. Emily was trapped in her own body, a silent scream caught in her throat. The world around her was shrouded in darkness, and the only sound was the deafening thud of her own heartbeat. Just when she thought she could bear no more, that she was on the precipice of being consumed by the abyss, the pressure lifted. The room returned to its benign state, the darkness receding, and the silence replaced by the familiar sounds of the night. Emily awoke, her body drenched in sweat, her heart still racing. Her ordeal was over, but the terror lingered. The memory of the suffocating pressure was seared into her mind, a haunting reminder of the horror that lurked in the shadows of her sleep. Emily's terrifying experience leaves us all gasping for breath. Prepare yourself for George's nightmare, a demonic face that left him frozen in fear. One night, George found himself trapped in a state of sleep paralysis. As he lay there, helpless and unable to move, the darkness of his room began to shift, morphing into a shape that sent chills down his spine. A demonic face emerged, contorted with malevolent delight, its eyes burning with an unholy light drilled into George's very being, causing an icy dread to seep into his bones. The face, twisted with an evil grin, hovered above him, a terrifying spectacle that loomed larger than life. Its grotesque features were etched into George's mind, a nightmarish vision that would haunt him long after the ordeal was over. Unable to scream or look away, he could only watch as the demonic face sneered at his terror, feeding off his fear. Each second felt like an eternity to George. The face seemed to revel in his helplessness, its wicked laughter echoing in his ears. Despite the sheer terror that gripped him, George was unable to break free from the paralysis, a prisoner in his own body. As he lay there, the face's eyes bore into him, an unending stare that seemed to penetrate his very soul. It was as if the demon was trying to extract his deepest fears, feasting on the anxiety and dread that filled him to the brim. Eventually, the break of dawn brought an end to the horrifying ordeal. As the first rays of sunlight pierced through the curtains, the demonic face faded back into the darkness from whence it came, but the terror it had instilled in George remained, a chilling reminder of the nightmarish encounter. George's horrifying encounter reminds us that our own minds can sometimes create the most terrifying monsters. His story serves as a chilling reminder of the power of our subconscious, a testament to the terror that can be unleashed when we are confronted with the darkest corners of our own psyche. Finally, we bring you Jenny's story of an unseen presence that terrified her in the dead of night. Jenny, like many of us, found comfort in the quiet solitude of her room. But one eerie night, her sanctuary turned into a stage for an unspeakable horror. As she slipped into the clutches of sleep paralysis, she felt an invisible entity move about her room. It was as if the air around her became thick with dread. The sheets rustled as though being tugged gently, and she felt the chilling sensation of something unseen breathing heavily beside her. Every instinct screamed at her to flee, but her body remained immobile, entrapped in a paralyzing fear. The night seemed to stretch into eternity as she waited for the dawn, praying for the unseen presence to leave her room. Jenny's eerie encounter leaves us wondering what unseen horrors might be lurking in our own bedrooms. These are just a few of the terrifying encounters people have had with sleep paralysis. Each tale, a chilling reminder of the unknown, the unseen, the unfathomable. Now, it's your turn. If you've ever found yourself trapped in a similar nightmare, drop a line in the comments. We're all ears, eager to delve deeper into these eerie experiences. Thank you for joining us on this spine-chilling journey. Don't forget to subscribe for more creepy content. Until next time, sleep tight, but never let your guard down.